Hey folks, the Wild and Woolly WooFDriver coming at you, and we are headed on another, even a little bit more epic of a trip. I'm going to turn the camera, and pups are kind of ready. Zoro is, at least. He's got a little bit of a muddy face because if you caught our free-ranging episode yesterday, we were getting down and dirty in the mud, and unfortunately some of the manure that they spread around on the farm we run, it's that time of year because they're starting to fertilize and get the fields ready for planting. Oh, good boy, Zorro. Got the chase man right there. He's catching some Z's. Oh, he's getting up. He's gonna lick the paw because that's got mud on it too. And there's the Jagster. Jaggy, can you say hi to the fans? Jag says hello. Finally, last but not least, the prettiest of the pack, the princess. There she is. You heard it? You see her perking up? Hi, pretty girl. You're a good girl. Catching a little yawn there. So, if you'll notice, it's just Dan and me right now because Jim has prior obligations that he needs to tend to. So, basically, we're headed out to do some ghost hunting. We're gonna do we're going, is it West Virginia?
Yeah, New River Gorge.
We're going to the we're going to the New River Gorge, folks. Supposedly could be one of the best trails we've ever run from what it looks like, but it's a little hard to tell because pictures and what we're doing is really special requirements, so we won't know till we get there. And should be awesome, but there's a lot of supposedly haunted places there, so hopefully we'll get some good ghost hunting in. Got the crew meeting us down there. Actually, our resident expert Curtis Weimer will be meeting us down there for the ghost hunting, and it's going to be a good reunion because we haven't been together since last year when we did our last ghost hunt. So usually it's a seasonal thing. And if you've watched us, you can check it out on the Werewolves channel. I'll be broadcasting on WooFDriver 2 if we have signal. But we usually do this seasonally because during the winter it's kind of too cold to get out there at night, which is the time we like to go to do our ghost hunting, and it's cool enough during the day for the dogs to run. So that's why it becomes an evening activity best suited for the summer. Should be a lot of fun. If you so we'll have a different crew. This is the old crew that everybody's used to seeing. Jim has been doing stuff for the past probably year. Jim's been with us from the beginning, but right now, because of the logistics of it, like I said, he's not going to stay there, and he's not going to go with us on this trip. So it's going to be actually Big Sean. It's going to be Crispy. Look at that. Look at that. Look at Zorro. It's going to be Curtis and myself and Dan. So it should be interesting, fun, and we hope to provide you a lot of great views. The ghost hunting should be awesome. We got almost all the equipment with us, and we're gonna really have an awesome time. This could be a 24-hour ordeal. Right now, we started at my house at around 7, and don't listen to Dan. He's trying to make me look bad because he got there before I was ready. And by the time we get there, it's about a 6.5-hour ride. So by the time we get to by the time we get to Crispy's is going to be probably another 40 minutes, and then by the time we get on the road, another hour. So we got 6.5 hours of road trip ahead of us, that doesn't include stops and everything else. So it's going to be a long trip. All right, Curtis says he's ready. So we're really excited, and we're going to have an awesome time, Curtis. This is so much fun, and it's a wonderful way, in my opinion, all the ghost hunting, to explore the history of the areas we go to. And where we are, this part of the country, on the mid-Atlantic, I should say, is really full of history because of our country's history. So I just feel closer to it and feel like we're tapping into it a little bit through doing the ghost hunting and picking up on the spirits and energy that's there. And you can catch a lot of what we did last year on our other videos, we did a lot of live shoots. This year, as long as the signal doesn't degrade too bad on us, we should get a lot of live shots in, a lot of live broadcasts. Got some new equipment that should really be awesome. And hey, Betsy, great. I'm so glad you're part of the group here also, because trying to do these little more personalized, intimate, if you will, broadcast where I can really talk about everything. Sometimes on the big channels it's hard to do that because there's so many people there, and they don't have the history with us, so they don't know exactly what we're doing. But just to brief everybody, in case you're watching the live version of this or you're watching the rerun, the rebroadcast, what we do is we run the dogs. Whenever you're ready, dude, don't let me hold you up, Dan. I'm just talking to Dan, who's on top. So what we do is we run the dogs in the warmer months during the evening hours, because it's cooler in the evening, of course. That gives us access to get their exercise pretty much all year long, and it keeps them in rhythm and shape. And it also is just so wonderful to have the bond with them, to be out there as much as we can doing something. So what I found is when we go at night, I started off this nighttime series. I started this long ago, before when I had my first two Huskies, going back about 20 years ago. I would go out at night because my schedule only allowed that, because I would work by the time with daylight savings time. By the time I would get off of work, it was 5:30, and it gets dark at 4:30 roughly. So I found ways to maneuver and navigate in the nighttime, and I wound up getting myself a pair of night vision goggles. Back then the technology wasn't as good with batteries, so I couldn't even, I'm just getting in the truck, folks, so I couldn't ability to have a good headlight or anything. But I found that these night vision goggles were truly awesome. They gave me the ability, they're military spec, so they give me the ability to see pretty much like the dogs. Dogs, most animals have some sort of infrared, they call it, vision, that gives them a way of navigating through the night. Now, of course, some are better than others. When you're talking owls and nocturnal animals are more equipped for it, but the dogs, it's amazing, can really see at night, because I watch them avoid things that are in the trail, obstacles such as branches and anything. Well, they find the animals either through scent or through seeing them, so they definitely have their nighttime vision capabilities. But in any case, I started doing this at night. I wound up getting my own night vision goggles. I'd go out on my standard trail that was local to me in the area, which is called the North Central Railroad, the NCR Trail. Supposedly, Abraham Lincoln traveled on there twice, once en route to give the Gettysburg Address, and the second time his body traveled on there when he was assassinated, when they were transporting him, is my understanding. So a lot of history there too. But I've done that trail. It's about 50 miles. I've done it one section over and over. That's all I would go to, because it was close by. It was just myself doing it, and it was doable. And I was most concerned with getting my dogs the exercise. As this evolved and became part of, I got the financial wherewithal and the time available to do it, I was able to develop it into a further adventure. So my newer Husky family at the time, or my pups back then, who are with me now, Zorro, Jag, and Chase, and Princess was 4 years old, I was able to start taking them on longer adventures. And that's when I said, hey, it would be really cool at some point, I think it's your seatbelt, Dan, it'd be really cool at some point to be able to take them out at night. But I knew there was going to be, when I start taking dogs out at night, 4 of them, because remember I was taking 2, it was going to be a little more involved, and I would probably need a helping hand and a better way of managing what I was doing. And because it was going to be so epic, I would want better ways of documenting it. So I looked into getting, I told you I had the night vision goggles, I looked into getting the actual video cameras that could record at night using infrared lights. Infrared is, if you can imagine your remote control at home that you use to control your TV or your cable box or satellite dish, whatever the case may be, when you hit the button you don't see anything, but the channel changes and you know it's doing it through the air. That's infrared. So it's kind of a light that's only minimally, very minimally visible to the human eye. And when it's on, though, it makes a difference. The cameras that are specialized to use this light, they take this light that doesn't even look like it's anything to us, and it makes a scene glow. It's pretty incredible. Only thing it can't do, in what I found, it can't penetrate water. So when you look at water, it looks like a black hole, because I've tried to show the rivers before and waterways we were at. In any case, I said, hey, I'm going to get some of this equipment and document further what I do. I had already had a crew together because the adventures I started doing during the day started to become more and more epic, because we would start going to further places along the eastern seaboard of the United States. We've gone up to the Cape Cod Rail Trail, we've gone to almost all parts, almost Tennessee, just all over the place. So as I was doing these at night, we were fortunate enough, Chris, to make contact with Curtis. And Curtis is been ghost hunting for many years, and he's an expert at it. And he said he'd come along with us and teach us some of what he knew and assist us. So we started doing it with him, and we had a really good time. And what the ghost hunting aspect of this does for the dogs, it gives us longer time to stay on the trail. So in other words, if you take the dogs out, especially in warmer weather, their capabilities are limited. But dogs recharge their batteries. They recover pretty well with a rest. And I'm not talking about, of course, a rest over a day or two, but I'm talking sometimes the cooler it is out, they could recover in 5 or 10 minutes. When it's warmer out, you give them 15, 20 minutes, half hour, and they can recover well enough to continue on for us to do another few miles. So the ghost hunt broke up our midnight mushing run, if you will, and gave the dogs a great time to rest. Somebody stays back with the dogs while we try to explore these areas that are pretty close to the trail. I'm talking within walking distance, sometimes probably maybe as far as a quarter to a half a mile, and the dogs stay back on the dog cart with someone designated to watch them. And I go out with some of the team led by Curtis, and we go over and we do our ghost hunting. And it's really fun if you've watched us, because in the background you can hear the dogs start to whine when they've had enough, when they want to go, and start to howl a little bit. So sometimes you don't know if they're howling or whining at the paranormal experience that we are communicating with, or at least making contact with in some way, or if they're just saying, let's go. But we've gone out as long, they'll stay back as long as an hour. And when they're ready to go, sometimes it's good for them to learn a little bit of patience. It keeps them in check, and it just rests them a little bit longer. So when we're out there, even for as much as an hour, hour and 15 minutes, they'll get their rest in. We get back to the dog cart. We're ready to roll. They're well rested, and we just did some really cool ghost hunting, paranormal explorations. And that's pretty much how it goes with what we do. So it's really become a win-win situation for everybody. And again, my biggest thrill of all of this is exploring the history of the trails that we visit and the areas there are. We've actually gone into some abandoned houses. We've gone into the Paw Paw Tunnel, which is probably one of the most famous tunnels in history in our area. And you can read about that. And you can view all these videos on the WooFDriver YouTube channel, or on the Werewolves, just like my shirt, Werewolves, WOOFS, the way I spell wolves, as you're aware of. YouTube channel, Werewolves, Facebook, and website, as well as the WooFDriver channel website on YouTube. So all good stuff. I'm just giving you a little background. Again, this is WooFDriver Unleashed, the group, so I give a little more insight into everything going on. Hey, Betsy's saying, oh, your husband works for the railroad. That is really cool, because most of the trails, I should say, that we explore are abandoned railroads, basically. They're lines that they take up the tracks and they've created trails. They call them rails to trails. So that's why the history starts off to begin with, because the trail was probably a railroad that dates way back. So most of the trails we go on are, I'm not sure if today's was this, do you know if the...
it's not a rail trail.
This is one
there is an abandoned railroad, though.
There is an abandoned railroad, but this will not be a railroad trail. So it's usually not, it's usually an abandoned railroad that we go to, which is called a rails to trails, but today's won't be. Again, this is the, what's it called again? The New River Gorge. And it's one of the tallest steel suspension bridges, I believe, in the United States. So we should be in for some epic views. We hope to get there between probably 3:30 to 4 o'clock today. We'll get rocking and rolling down the trail, pick up some really good views, I'm hoping, for everybody. And the ghost hunting will come in the later hours of the evening. So it should be interesting, should be fun. So I'm going to wrap this feed up. If you didn't catch it, try to rerun it, because it's good. Betsy, we have some of the rails to trails around. You do have some of the rails to trails around you. I find the rails to trails are the best trails to run the dogs on, because they are wide usually. So since they had a railroad there, when they take the railroad bed up, it's usually wide enough to run the dogs on. Because some of these trails, it's a little hard when we look up trails where we're going to run, again, all over the eastern seaboard of the United States, if they're wide enough for us to get our dog cart on. We've gotten to some trails and